Imagine it, one morning everything stops. The cities are silent, the lights are gone, every digital trace of our existence erased. No electricity, no internet, no satellites, no governments. The world has restarted. 7 billion survivors stand in the ashes of a world that once was. We remember technology, but we have no tools. We remember history, but there are no records. We remember civilization, but it's gone. This is not the end of the world. This is the beginning of it all again. Welcome to the question that haunts philosophers, survivalists, and scientists alike. What if we could restart civilization from zero? For the first time in human history, we would face the ultimate test. Could humanity rebuild the world it once created? Or would we crumble under the weight of our own forgotten knowledge? To answer that, we must first understand what civilization truly is. It's not the skyscrapers, it's not the machines, it's not even the governments that rule us. Civilization is a fragile web of cooperation, knowledge, and trust, woven over thousands of years. Every tool, every law, every invention rests upon countless layers of human progress that came before. Restarting civilization from zero means starting without that foundation, without history, without structure, without memory. The world is quiet now. No hum of engines, no radio static, no aircraft in the sky, just the wind and the sound of our own confusion. Imagine stepping outside your home to find your phone lifeless, your car dead, your city grid collapsed. No one knows what happened, but everyone knows one thing: there's no going back. Humanity is thrust into a new stone age, but with the memories of the digital one. Those who once depended on machines must now depend on each other. The cities become graveyards of metal and glass. Nature begins its slow reclaim. And for the first time in centuries, survival becomes the only currency. You might think knowledge will save us. After all, humans today know far more than our ancestors ever did. We know how electricity works. We understand agriculture, medicine, and physics. But knowing what something is not the same as knowing how to make it. You can remember that a computer runs on silicon chips. But could you refine silicon from sand? Could you extract copper, smelt it, and shape it into wire? Could you rebuild a generator from nothing? Modern knowledge is trapped inside tools we can no longer use. The human race has become dependent on convenience. Remove the infrastructure, and suddenly our species becomes fragile again. The irony is painful. We would remember the world we lost in perfect detail, but have no means to rebuild it. The first weeks would be chaos. Cities would empty. People would flee in search of food, clean water, and safety. Hospitals would darken. Markets would fall silent. Money would become meaningless. The old world systems, economy, government, industry, would vanish overnight. Power would belong to those who can adapt. Farmers, engineers, and builders. Those who can produce real value would become the new elite. Old professions would fade into irrelevance. But even they would struggle because the supply chains they once relied upon would be gone. You cannot plant a crop without seed. You cannot heal without medicine. You cannot build without tools. In the ruins of the modern world, we would have to rediscover what it means to be human. Let's imagine the survivors begin to organize. Small groups form around fresh water sources, arable land, and natural shelters. Tribes, not nations. Communities, not corporations. This is where the story of civilization begins again. The rediscovery of fire, stone, and purpose. Somewhere, someone learns to boil water again, to make a fire by friction, to carve a spear, to shape clay. Every rediscovered skill becomes sacred. Knowledge spreads not through the internet, but through word of mouth, through demonstration, through trust. We would be living history in reverse. We've done this before. Human civilization has collapsed many times. When the Roman Empire fell, Europe plunged into centuries of chaos. When the Mayan cities were abandoned, their knowledge vanished with them. When the Bronze Age collapsed, whole languages disappeared. Each collapse erased technology, culture, and art that took generations to create. And yet, humanity always found a way to rise again. This gives us hope. Because if the past teaches us anything, it's that we are resilient. But this time, the fall would be different. It would not be the fall of a city or a continent. It would be the fall of an entire species' infrastructure. This is not just rebuilding from ruins, it's rebuilding from memory. In this new zero-point civilization, knowledge is both our greatest strength and our greatest weakness. We know what's possible: flying machines, medicine, space travel. But the path to reach them again is long and fragile. Imagine trying to rebuild electricity without copper mining or insulation tools. or trying to rediscover antibiotics without sterile laboratories, or trying to make glass lenses without industrial furnaces. Each discovery humanity made was not a single step, it was a staircase of thousands. And if one step is missing, the climb becomes impossible. So the first generations of this new civilization would face a choice: try to rebuild the past or start a new future altogether. Soon, ideologies would form. Some would cling to memory, to rebuild the old world, to recover what was lost. They'd call themselves the Restorers. Others would reject it. They'd believe humanity's old world was a curse, that technology brought arrogance and decay. They'd seek a simpler life, guided by nature and balance. They'd call themselves the Purists. The conflict between these two visions would shape the destiny of this new world. Would humanity learn from its past, or repeat it? Would we rebuild machines, or rewrite meaning? History may be gone, but human nature never changes. Years pass, generations grow, and one day, somewhere across the silent planet, a spark ignites, a new city rises, not of steel and glass, but of clay and stone. A place of trade, of learning, of hope. People gather not for profit, but for purpose. It is the dawn of a new civilization. Here, the first libraries are built again. Simple scrolls, carved tablets, words etched into permanence. The written language returns. History begins to rewrite itself. And once more, humanity looks up to the stars, wondering if they can ever reach them again. If civilization could be reborn, it would not look like the one we know. More fragile, perhaps wiser. But one truth would remain unchanged, that the spirit of creation, the human drive to build, to explore, to question, can never truly die. Even if everything was lost, humanity would still rise. Maybe not in centuries, maybe not in millennia, but someday again. Because civilization is not just cities, it's not just machines, it's the spark that refuses to fade. And yet, one question remains. If humanity were given a second chance, would we rebuild the same world again? Or would we create something entirely different? Because restarting civilization is not just about survival. It's about choice. And the next choice we make could determine whether this new world thrives or destroys itself once more. The embers of civilization glow faintly in the ashes of the old world. Generations have passed since the Great Silence, the moment everything we once knew vanished. Now, humanity begins again. Children are born into a world without memory. They do not know the sound of an airplane or the sight of a glowing screen. Their skies are dark, pure, and endless. Their nights are filled with stars that once hid behind the haze of progress. And yet, beneath this simplicity, the seeds of ambition awaken once more. Humans have started to dream again. This is the dawn of the Second Age. Civilization does not rise evenly. It grows in fragments scattered across continents. Small villages evolve into settlements. Settlements form alliances. And slowly, a pattern emerges. Some build around water and agriculture, reminiscent of the ancient river civilizations of the Nile and Indus. Others build around defense, highland fortresses that mirror the spirit of the old empires. But without written history, every culture believes it is the first. Every people think they are the beginning. The idea of restarting civilization is long forgotten. What remains is instinct, the human desire to organize, to lead, to conquer. One day, a young scribe finds something unusual, an old book, its pages half burned, its text faded. He cannot read it, but he knows it means something. He begins to copy the shapes, the symbols, the patterns. In doing so, he reignites a fire humanity thought extinct: the pursuit of knowledge. Over the decades, these fragments of the old world are collected and studied. Ruins of skyscrapers become temples of mystery. Rusting vehicles become relics. Old maps become sacred scripture. To the new generations, these are not the remains of a fallen civilization. They are the myths of gods. And once again, humanity begins to build its identity around stories, half memory, half imagination. With knowledge comes hierarchy. With hierarchy comes control. As people gather in growing numbers, leaders emerge. The first new governments form, not of democracy or monarchy, but of survival. At first, power lies in those who can provide: farmers, blacksmiths, healers. But soon, power shifts to those who can command: warriors, chiefs, visionaries, and history begins to repeat. Where there is order, there is ambition. Where there is ambition, there is conquest. The new civilizations, still fragile, begin to clash. Territories expand. Borders are drawn. Weapons evolve. From wooden spears to forged iron. War returns, not as chaos, but as inevitability. It begins with the rediscovery of metallurgy. Iron ore, melted in crude furnaces, gives birth to tools stronger than bone and stone. Villages transform into cities protected by walls. Trade routes emerge, powered by river and foot. Currency, language, and religion take shape again. Echoes of patterns humanity seems destined to repeat. But with every advancement, the past whispers faintly through the wind. Why does it all feel familiar? Why do we crave the same patterns, build the same hierarchies, make the same mistakes? The new world marches forward unaware that it is rebuilding a mirror of the one that came before. Generations pass. Curiosity becomes discipline. Observation becomes theory. Somewhere, in a small corner of this reborn world, a thinker watches the movement of shadows and stars. He notices patterns, cycles, seasons, time. Astronomy is born again. Elsewhere, a healer discovers that boiling water prevents illness. Medicine begins anew. Piece by piece, discovery by discovery, humanity climbs the ladder it once fell from. But this time, something changes. Without the memory of modern greed or endless consumption, early science grows side by side with philosophy. Knowledge is seen not as power, but as reverence. For a time, it seems humanity might finally take a gentler path, but paradise never lasts. Knowledge, once shared freely, begins to divide again. Those who learn faster, who invent, who discover, are feared. The old fear of difference returns. Some call the thinkers prophets. Others call them heretics. Religion and science collide once more. Cities rise in faith, others rise in reason. And for the second time in history, humanity faces the same question. Should we seek the truth or control it? The struggle between faith and knowledge becomes the heartbeat of this new age. As centuries unfold, the pace of progress quickens. The rediscovery of electricity, chemistry, and mathematics begins. But they emerge differently, less industrial, more organic. Without fossil fuels, humanity learns to harness natural power, wind, sun, and water, earlier in its rebirth. The new cities shine with clean energy, quiet and balanced. This world, unlike the one before, builds not upon domination, but on necessity. The lessons of scarcity shape it. Technology grows, but not as a master, rather as a servant of survival. For the first time, it seems the cycle might break. Now, millennia after the Great Silence, the planet thrives again. A new map has emerged. Continents connected not by empires, but by mutual discovery. Explorers cross oceans with sails woven from solar fabrics. Scholars share knowledge through sound, light, and memory. Historians begin to uncover hints of a world that came before. Ruins buried deep in forests and deserts tell a story they cannot fully understand. Massive steel skeletons beneath the soil. Strange machines fossilized in dust. Traces of a civilization that seems too advanced to have ever existed before them. And slowly, realization dawns, they are not the first. Humanity has lived, died, and risen. Again, archaeologists uncover a forgotten satellite dish buried beneath layers of earth. A symbol carved into its side reads, NES. Nearby, fragments of old plastic and circuitry remain intact, whispering the truth. Their ancestors once reached the stars. The revelation shatters the world. The myths of gods, the stories of creation, all traced back to humankind itself. The realization hits, they are not God's creations, they are God's reborn. And with that truth, the cycle begins to turn again. Ambition returns, dreams expand. Now, the question is no longer how to survive, but how to advance. The rediscovered principles of electricity and flight evolve faster this time, because this generation learns from the fossils of the old world. They know where humanity once succeeded and where it failed. The second industrial age begins, but it is guided by restraint. Factories run on clean energy. Cities grow vertically in harmony with forests. Machines assist, but do not dominate. For a moment, it seems humanity has found balance. A civilization born not of greed, but of gratitude. And yet deep within, something stirs. The same restlessness that drove the first world to expand beyond reason. Curiosity without limit. Progress without patience. What begins as exploration soon turns into ambition. The new world begins to reach again. For the stars, for control, for power. The old cycle tightens its grip. History begins its silent repetition. It is the paradox of humanity. No matter how many times we begin again, we carry the same fire, the same brilliance, the same danger. If civilization could truly restart from zero, perhaps we would build something wiser, a world that values nature as much as progress, empathy as much as intellect. But history, real or imagined, suggests a darker truth. Maybe humanity cannot escape itself. Maybe every rebirth is just another chapter of the same eternal story: creation, rise, arrogance, collapse, renewal. The pattern repeats because it is written into what we are. So, if we could restart civilization from zero, would we really build something new? Or are we destined to rebuild the same world, over and over again, until the stars themselves burn out? Somewhere, in the distant horizon of time, one question still lingers. If we ever rebuilt civilization to perfection, what if something greater than humanity decided to start over for us?